Hey guys, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite parts of American history, the Salem Witch Trials. The Salem Witch Trials lasted for about a year between 1692 and 1693, and in that time about 200 people were accused of witchcraft, making it the largest witch hunt in America to date. When you were accused, you were taken from your home to a prison that was typically infested with rats, mold, and a lot of them even flooded on the lower levels. And due to this, 5 people died just from being in prison, had nothing to do with being put on trial or anything. Other than that, only 20 people were actually killed, which is a relatively small number compared to the European counterparts of the Salem witch trials, in which over 60,000 people are believed to have been killed. But still, the 20 people who were killed were almost always falsely accused and were typically very good people. But they didn't pass the tests of witchcraft, which typically included birthmarks. If you had a birthmark, that could be used as evidence against you in a witch trial, or if you could float, they would dunk you in a river, and if you floated back to the top, you were a witch, and if you didn't, either way you died. Or the not the inability to recite quotes from the Bible or anything like that, etc. But even if you didn't pass these tests, a lot of people could still be put to death because of spectral evidence, which entitled the people that were trying to accuse you of being a witch would get up on trial and say that you were tormenting them in your spiritual form. And even if you were standing in trial right next to them, they could have fits like the afflicted girls of Salem. And like in that case, for instance, a band of teenage girls, no different than me or anyone else, would go to a trial and have these huge fits and spastically shake and go into trances and say that the person being accused was tormenting them, and that could be used as spectral evidence and would get the person that was on trial killed. But obviously that's not solid evidence, but it was just fine in the courts of Massachusetts in 1692. But lastly, the people that were accused range from people like the first girl that was killed, Bridget Bishop. She was actually attempting witchcraft. At least that's what historians think today. Range from people like her to people that were completely innocent, that had no real evidence against them at all. And typically those women, it was mostly women, were just people with free spirits and strong amounts of independence, and because of the man-based society at the time, those women were thought of as very dangerous and bad influences in society, so they were taken and killed because of that. But it wasn't just women. For instance, there was one man, Giles, I think his name was, who he was put on trial for witchcraft, but he wouldn't admit if he was a witch or not, so they crushed him under a rock. And that was the only time in English history that that punishment was used. It wasn't okay by English law, but in Massachusetts, none of that really mattered, and that he was killed as well. There was quite a few men. In Europe, it was men, women, children, anything went, because being a witch was one of the worst things that you could possibly be accused of. And for people being accused of witchcraft, it was especially difficult because it was exceedingly hard to prove your innocence. In the Salem witch trials, no one was just let off. Every person that they put on trial actually was killed. The other people that were in prison that were accused were eventually set free, but none of them were actually tried. So that makes it a really interesting part of history to a lot of people, and especially to me. So thank you.